Who here can confidently raise their hand and tell me that they have had proper sexual education? Alright, so over the past couple weeks, my team and I have researched the lack of sexual education in middle school, high school, and even college. We are all college students here with little to no sexual education on how to live with a modern day, healthy sexual lifestyle. Sexual education should be taught not only earlier, but with more relevant topics on the modern day. Problems such as bias among teachers and lack of proper sexual education for the modern day leads to troubles such as STDs, teen pregnancies, and sexual assault, and even so on. We will provide you with sexual education relevance and statistics to this matter. Bias in schools can lead to students having unhealthy sexual, bias in schools can lead students to unhealthy sexual relationships. I had this bias when I attended a private Catholic school, and they taught me the only abstinent way, which is if you have sex, it's bad. If you have sex out of marriage, you're going to hell. If you have sex in marriage, that's the only way to have sex. I mean, there's no good way there. I mean, let's be honest here. That's not the modern teachings at all. Maria Fernandez with the National Library of Medicine stated, participants in abstinent-only sexual education had low input on their life. And that being said, I mean, sexual education, it's a very important class in our lives. It teaches us how to have healthy lifestyles and just in general. So having a bad education, it leads to really bad things in the future.
Okay, I did my research over how sex education can affect the LGBTQ plus community, and I have this table from one of my articles, which they did a study over how people have learned from their sex education, like what they learned, how it was taught, and what they gained from it. And they found that one of the questions they asked was, were you taught about any same-sex relationships, or what did they teach you in the class? And they found that many people were actually taught that they should fear sex, that it wasn't good, just be scared of it because you're gonna get an STD and then you're gonna die, basically. And then when they were asked about LGBTQ plus relationships, they found that nobody was informed about this. And in one of the studies, they actually found that female individuals in the study they didn't know that sex was supposed to be pleasurable to them, and they found out that they were in abusive relationships, and this led them to having sexual trauma. And they found out later that they weren't actually attracted to males, they were attracted to other females, and that's why they weren't having pleasure during their sex. In their 2021 article titled A Rapid Review and Narrative Synthesis of the Consequences of Non-Inclusive Sex Ed in the UK Schools on LGBTQ Young People, authors Epps, Markowski, and Cleaver state that increasing knowledge on same-sex relationships will help create a safer community for teens to explore their sexual identity. And by creating a more open environment in sex ed courses, we can help eliminate other types of consequences from biases, such as feelings of shame in themselves, depression, and suicidal tendencies. Because they were taught that they should practice normal sex, which is penis to vagina, and they thought that they were different because that's what they considered normal, so it was abnormal, and they were bullied for it. Eliminating biases in sex education helps to create an open community, and it starts by having the proper inclusive talk with parents or in class.
Okay, how many of you guys have ever received the talk? It was kind of just a pure, like, here's what puberty is, you're going into middle school, this is all you need to know. You never actually learned what STDs are, STIs, how teen pregnancy can affect your life for the rest of your life, and even sexual assault. These are kind of the main factors that lead to the lack of sex education. So many students have actually said that they need more relevant and updated information before it is too late, because then you can avoid outcomes such as the STDs, STIs, sexual assault, teen pregnancy. Many students say that it is an insufficient way of education, and if any at all. So in an article titled College Student Suggestions for Improving Sex Education in Schools Beyond Blah 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 Sex and Condoms, author Shelby Alstar and others went to college students down south where STDs and STIs are more prevalent as they have the highest STD rates on campus, and they asked about their previous sex education before college. And in 2021, 527 college students went on to state that sex education needs to be updated. And about 227 of those students agreed that 6 major things need to happen in sex education. Shelby wrote, improvements that need to be emerged include basic information about sex itself, coverage of diverse sexual behaviors and interactions, the social and emotional aspects of sex, sex education earlier and more often, and the inclusion of updated and realistic information and instructions from educated professionals. An English teacher in 5th grade is not going to cut it, is what they said. And so without the education of sex, a lot of things could be prevented in a lot of lives, especially on college campuses. Sexual assault is one of the most, it's the biggest thing on a college campus, as not many kids know how to say no. And in an article titled The Sex Education Before College Protects Students from Sexual Assault, author John Stelly and others discussed the need for sex education prior to college, just in middle school and high school. And in 2018, the author conducted a sex education survey in about 151 impersonal and in-depth interviews. The students reported a wide range of exposure to very informal instruction about sexuality, and only about 50% have received formal education on sex, refusal, methods of birth control, STIs, STDs, and HIV and AIDS prevention, and only about 3% described receiving abstinent-only instruction. So like Aiden had said before, the bias of abstinent versus non-abstinence really plays a role in the sex education.
All right, so to go on from that, in my article from Cantor and Lidberg from 2020, they state that Psychus, I think is how you say it, does not have separate guidelines for teaching about pleasure in sexual relationships, which is just very bad because it goes over like a very key component of sexual health and also puts adolescents at risk for reduced use of condoms and birth control methods, as studies have shown, while also heightening sexual assault and toxic sexual relationships in that same study. So, thank you. To go off of that, we have like age of first intercourse and number of lifetime sexual partners for both guys and girls. It's at age 16 and 6 for guys and 4 for girls. And with how much is not being taught, like the only thing really being taught is abstinence, and they're going through sexual relationships at the age of 16, it's pretty bad. And to go into my next thing, in the same article from 2020, it states that although 80% of adolescents ages 15 to 19 have learned about abstinence and info on STDs and prevention against it, only 57% of sexually active girls and 43% of sexually active boys learn about instruction about birth control methods. That's just very bad. So it's just like showing all the statistics about how negative it is to only learn about abstinence and STDs. It just heightens so many different things because of the fact that there's no other information about sexual health and how we should look at it. So in a teacher questionnaire by the SHP School Health Program, there was only a single question that asked about LGBTQ inclusivity and how it is taught in sex education. Another point that is being skipped over by our sexual health education programs. And if I remember correctly, the only question that was on that questionnaire that said it wasn't even a question that was completely directed at them. It was just being saying they were learning about, I think it was teen pregnancy rates it doesn't even really go into that, so that's just really bad. And then to tie it all up, our main thesis is just how bad, like, our sexual health education is in school, going from middle school to high school and now in college. The fact that a lot of us, as people were saying, is just awkward and it isn't, like, you don't learn as much as you should. Going from my statistics, the biases that we've seen in school programs, and just like how bad like sexual assault and other things can happen is just needs to end. So I think just from going off of that, the main thing to take away from this entire presentation is just in future generations we need to teach sexual health in a more unbiased and open way so that our kids can like learn to be more expressive with their gender identity and how they see sexual relationships. And I think then we can have a truly like positive way of looking at it from there on. Okay, I think that's it. Thank you.